Hi everybody, my name is Lindsay Webb. I'm a wildlife educator with New Hampshire Fish and Game, and we're going to go out with Becky Fuda, who is the deer project leader for Fish and Game, and we're going to go see if we can find some deer sign. Come on, let's go see what we can find.
So white-tailed deer are probably around 6 feet tall, maybe about 3 feet at the shoulder. Can range from maybe 120 pounds for a young buck to, in New Hampshire, they can get up to almost 300 pounds for a very large mature buck, but that would be a pretty unusual weight. Does are generally going to be smaller. In the summertime, they have a reddish-brown coat. Underneath their belly is white. They have some white on their throat and on their face as well. And in the winter, they'll shed that summer coat and have more of a very thick, more grayish brown coat. When deer are born, the fawns are born with a reddish brown coat that is spotted, has white spots. And when those fawns are hiding, so one of the ways that they try to escape predators when they're very young is simply to hide. So they'll be curled up on the forest floor. It's thought that that white spotted pattern is mimicking the way that light sort of comes down through the canopy in an uneven way on the brown leaves on the forest floor. The males obviously grow antlers every year, so they start growing them usually in the springtime around maybe April, and they'll be in velvet up until August, September, when they'll start to shed that velvet, and then they'll have the hard antlers until winter time, and they usually shed those antlers and starting late December through February. In the winter, not much is going to be growing, so food is going to be a big challenge for white-tailed deer. Any food that was around during the fall, like mast crops like acorns that were available on the ground, can sometimes be covered in snow. So if that snow is very deep or if there's a hard crust, it can be difficult to access that food even if there is some still available. The other challenge is going to be weather. So those cold temperatures and deep snow will cause deer to burn a lot more energy to get around and to keep warm. They look for areas that have a very dense conifer canopy. South of the White Mountains, that's generally going to be hemlock stands. White Mountains and north, those deer yards tend to be spruce fir stands. Those areas under the dense conifer canopy catches the snow. The snow is not as deep, and it allows the deer to move around a little more easily. It also provides some protection from the wind and from the cold temperatures, and they have to burn less energy. They're able to make paths through the snow that help them get around a little more easily. White-tailed deer eat a lot of different plants. They have a pretty varied diet, but they are fairly selective. Their diet can vary a little bit seasonally, but it's made up of browse, which is usually defined as the leaves of woody plants. They eat a lot of forbs, which are going to be herbaceous or non-woody broadleaf plants. And then they'll eat mast, whether it's soft mast like berries in the summer or hard mast like beech nuts or acorns in the fall. And then in the winter, they can eat some more woody browse, so like twigs and buds and bark stripping, which we will see today in their deer wintering areas. So they can communicate through a variety of methods. The big one is going to be scent. Deer have a few different glands. For example, they have an interdigital gland between the toes of their hooves. There's a scent gland, and so when they're walking, they're likely leaving some scent behind in the trail. During the breeding season, bucks will create scrapes where they paw up the ground and make a little bare patch of dirt, and as they're doing it, they leave the scent from that gland. They also have forehead glands and preorbital glands, which are right next to their eye. And when they make those scrapes, usually there's also what's called a licking branch just above that scrape. And so they'll pull that branch down and they lick it, and they rub their forehead gland on it, and they rub their preorbital gland on it. And so they're leaving their scent behind during the mating season. But even not during the mating season, it's likely that they also are probably using scent to communicate to some degree. They can communicate through sight in some ways as well. For example, white-tailed deer have that big triangular tail that's white underneath, and when they get scared, they often run away and they will flip that tail up and wave it back and forth, sort of like a flag, and it's thought that maybe that might be a warning to other deer or kind of a follow me sort of signal. They also can communicate to some degree through sound, so both bucks and does make some grunt noises. Fawns will bleat to communicate with their mother, and sometimes if you're hunting, you might hear a deer blow or snort where they kind of blow out a bunch of air, and that usually means that they saw you and they know you're there and they're scared, and you're probably not going to have any luck with that deer that day. Deer leave behind a lot of evidence. They leave behind tracks. If there's a path where a lot of deer have been traveling multiple times, you can often see a trail. Like we said before, during the breeding season, the bucks are going to leave behind some scrapes on the ground, which are those little clearings that they make. They're also going to be rubs. Rubs are different from scrapes. So rubs are when a buck is using a small tree to rub his antlers on to get the velvet off, usually during around September. Obviously, they leave scat behind. And in wintering areas, we can look and we can see where they were browsing. So, where they were stripping bark off of hemlocks. In any deer habitat, you can look and see where they've been browsing. But you can identify deer browse usually by how high up it is, as well as the fact that it has a frayed edge, because deer do not have any incisors, so they have no front teeth on the top. They only have teeth in the front on the bottom, and so when they break branches off, it's not a clean cut, it's frayed.
Wow, thank you, Becky, so much for telling us about white-tailed deer in New Hampshire. We learned what deer look like, what they eat during different seasons, and how they survive New Hampshire's winters. Now it's your turn. Go outside and find white-tailed deer evidence in your own backyard.